NEA, which is the teachers union, they had their annual meeting in Orlando over the July 4th holiday. And they voted, they had a resolution that would gag Christian students from supporting traditional marriage. And where this is leading is, of course, a attack on religious freedom. And I just want to let you know the tact they're going to be using to attack religious freedom. And it says the NEA will develop educational materials for its states, affiliates, and members about the potential dangers of so-called Religious Freedom Restoration Acts, which there's one out there right now called the First Amendment Defense Act they're trying to get passed. Anyhow, this is how they're going to come after us, which may license individuals and corporations to discriminate on the theory that their religious beliefs require such actions. So they're basically going to say our religious beliefs are discriminatory, and that's how they're going to come after our religious freedom. So just be on guard for that. At our next meeting, we are going to have Wallace Brushweiler, and he's the author of The Betrayal Papers, which traces the influence of the Muslim Brotherhood in the Obama administration's foreign and domestic policies. The 6-part series presents a picture of a conspiracy that is manipulating the American government to the benefit of a totalitarian, genocidal movement that seeks to establish a global Islamic state. So that's going to be our speaker next time, so be sure to come out. And on August the 20th, we're going to have a penny sales tax forum here. We've put together a panel where you have people that are both for and against the penny sales tax renewal, which comes up on a referendum in November. So you'll want to come to hear both sides of that argument on our August 20th meeting. And now let me tell you about our speaker tonight. Bob was gracious enough to come on short notice because our speaker we had scheduled, Jennifer Sullivan, she canceled on us. So let me tell you about Bob. Bob is the Inspector General for the Lake County Clerk of the Court. Bob has served as Inspector General for the Pinellas County Clerk's Office, the City Auditor of Dallas, and Board Chair of the Dallas Employees Retirement System.
What's his last name?
Melton. Director of County Audit for the Orange County, Florida Comptroller's Office, and Director of Audits for the Missouri State Auditor. Bob earned a Master of Public Administration from the University of Missouri and a Bachelor of Science in Business Administration from Southeast Missouri State University. He is a Certified Internal Auditor, a Certified Fraud Examiner, a Certified Public Accountant, and a Certified Inspector General. He has served on the boards of many national, regional, and local and professional organizations. Prior to joining Lake County, Bob served as a Christian missionary in Costa Rica and Ecuador. And with that, I will bring up Bob.
I know what you were thinking probably when you heard that introduction in the bio. It's probably the same thing I was thinking, and that's that guy can't seem to keep a job. But it's a real pleasure to be here. I feel like already I'm among friends. And you know, every day I work with county management and county officials, the court system, judges, and even lawyers. And I'm not always welcomed with open arms, as you can imagine. As a matter of fact, when I was with Orange County, the Orlando Sentinel once did a column about me and my work, and the caption of the headline was, "When Bob Melton walks into a room, even the strong get queasy."
Good.
So how many of you knew that Lake County had an Inspector General? Okay, very few. Do you know what an Inspector General does?
Inspects?
Okay, inspects. Okay, very good. Well, as you may have noticed from the bio, I'm with the Clerk of Court's office, and that may be a little bit puzzling to you if you're not familiar with the structure in Florida, because you think normally of a Clerk of Court as being just that, a Clerk of Court. But in Florida, in most of the Florida counties, the Clerk of Court wears a whole bunch of other hats besides just being Clerk of Court. And one of them that I fulfill is the clerk is the elected county auditor of the county. And he's also the chief financial officer of the county. And typically, we lump both of those functions together and say controller. Most clerks in the state, if you look at their websites, will say clerk of the court and county controller. And then the clerk, of course, keeps the official records, does recording of official documents, and serves as clerk to the Board of County Commissioners. So there's a whole lot of things the clerk of court does besides just serve as the clerk of court. So that if you could change. As far as our role as county auditor, it's really embedded in the state constitution, and it says that it shall be the ex officio auditor of the county. Go on. And there's been several court cases on this because, as you can imagine, county management doesn't always like having an independent county auditor. So over the last 50 years or so, county management has thrown up roadblocks to try and limit or squelch the audit function. So there have been court cases on this. This is one of them that says that the clerk is to act as county auditor in all auditing functions, except when the board employs a CPA firm. And I've had several conversations with county attorneys over the years, and I have to tell them, what part of all isn't clear to you? One judge kind of summed it up nicely, I thought, and I've used this a lot of times. We're here to prevent the soap syndrome, one hand washes the other. Complacency, be concerned only when someone gets caught, and lockjaw, don't rock the boat. And that pretty well sums it up, I guess. But in my job, I frequently rock the boat, so I guess I'm doing my job. And as far as the structure in the clerk of court's office, I report directly to Neil Kelly, the elected clerk of court. And you can see on here the various divisions of the clerk's office. The administrative services has recording and personnel and some other things. Courts management's the big function, and then IT, and then the county finance department, where the finance director is located. But in addition to auditing the Board of County Commissioners, I also audit the clerk's office. So that is one reason why it's for me to be at a level where these other managers can't affect my work in any way. As far as what an inspector general does, we do basically two functions. We do audits of county operations, and then we also do investigations. And those are typically investigations of fraud, waste, or abuse that goes on. And so, we converted to Inspector General's office about a year ago, and before that it was Internal Audit Division. But when you have an Internal Audit Division and when you do investigations, internal auditing doesn't really cover that. The Inspector General function is really a much better fit. And one reason is because these standards exist, principles and standards for offices of inspectors general, which we do follow here in Lake County. And I wanted to read you some of this because this is so much, I think, in tune with your group's whole philosophy just about, and it's accountability. Accountability is key to maintaining the public trust. And the public expects inspector generals to hold government officials accountable for efficient, cost-effective government operations and to prevent fraud, waste, and abuse and illegal acts. That's really what we're all about in a nutshell. And then in exercising these powers, Inspector General regard their offices as a public trust and their prime duty as serving the public interest. I like to tell people I only cater to one special interest group, and that's the citizens and taxpayers of Lake County. And during my entire career, the people I audit are my auditees. And I'll always tell people my clients are the citizens and taxpayers. And that really helps put it in perspective because, as we go about audits and investigations, sometimes we can deal with sticky issues. We can deal with a lot of pushback. People don't always want to change how they're doing things, but we always keep the interest of the citizens and taxpayers in the forefront in mind and do what's right for the public. And when you do that, you're always on the right track, and I believe you always make the right decision. And the internal auditing, we have internal audit standards out there too, and they kind of describe the scope of a lot of what we do, look at efficiency and effectiveness of operations, safeguarding of assets, and of course, compliance. But the underlying philosophy that we use is that public officials are accountable for their jobs that they're doing. They're accountable to the people for what they're doing. And that part of what the Inspector General does is to hold them accountable. And of course, we're here to improve government as we're coming up, but we're also here to inform you, the citizens, as to what's going on in the government. And this better says it right here. We have multiple roles. We try to be a tool for management to help improve their operations. I really like to do an audit right after a new director or somebody comes on board, or if the circumstances allow, when a new elected official comes on board, because we can do a comprehensive audit of their operation, and we can, in essence, provide them a blueprint as to what needs to change in their office and their operations. So audits can be a great tool for management to help improve something. And part of the benefit is that we're coming from the outside. We're not a part of management. We're not a part of this department. We're coming in and we are assessing the operations and identifying areas that can be improved. And sometimes just a fresh set of eyes can be really, really helpful. We audit, as I've alluded to, the Board of County Commissioners. That's our primary role. We audit the clerk to the court. But in my view, there's a bad Attorney General opinion out there that says that we do not have audit authority over the other constitutional officers. And that means we cannot audit the sheriff, who's the bulk of the money of constitutional officers. Now, that does not mean, as the sheriffs will tell you, it does not mean they're not audited, but they're audited by a CPA firm that is doing the financial statement audit. And basically, the objective of that audit is to determine whether the numbers in the financial statements are presented fairly. And then they look at also high-level compliance with various grants. But just to give you an example of the effectiveness of that function, of that operation, and I don't mean to demean CPA firms because they're doing what they're supposed to be doing, but when I was with the city of Dallas as a city auditor, a city of 14,000 city employees, a city where every report I did, I uncovered massive findings of areas that need improvement, substantial fraud in various areas and so forth, every single report. And one year they did the financial statement audit for the entire city and had 0 findings. So, the CPA firm does their job well for financial statements, but don't depend on them to look at efficiency and effectiveness of operations. And in the normal financial statement audit, it's just not going to happen. Now, you can hire them to do the other types of audits. It's generally very expensive to do so. Typically, it's not done too much in Florida. So anyway, we can audit the sheriff. We cannot audit the supervisor of elections. We cannot audit the tax collector, and we cannot audit the property appraiser. With one exception, and that's if they request us to audit. And if they request us to come and do an audit, we'll certainly be glad to do so. And I have done that in other counties with different situations. So far, that's not happened here in Lake County, but I'm hopeful maybe some point in the future it will. But until this Attorney General opinion is out there, until that's changed through some type of legislation or court case, it's just not going to happen, except on a volunteer basis. This is in a pie chart form. Basically, it says that 25% of the county we cannot audit unless asked. $62 million worth annually of taxpayer dollars that is not audited by us. You know, and with auditors, I like to tell people, I don't like to tell people, but it's the way it is, we can't make anybody do anything. All we can do is write reports, make recommendations, and we work with everybody to the extent that we can to get recommendations implemented. We work with the auditees while we're in field work. As we identify problems, we tell them, and hopefully they can correct them right away. Now, we'll still write them up in the audit report, so to let the citizens know what's going on, but we try to work with them to correct their issues as soon as possible. In our audit reports, if you look at some of them, you will see that we have fully developed findings, and I mean by that, we won't just make a statement saying this is the situation. We won't just say, for example, and this is hypothetical, it's not Lake County, county vehicles are not used efficiently and drop it. We'll go on and say if 30 vehicles, 25 had less than 5,000 miles a year, blah, 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 and we will give specifics. And we'll try to identify cost, how much it's costing the taxpayers for this situation to be occurring. We try to identify additional revenues that could be achieved, not tax increases, but additional revenues that the county should be achieving based on their current rules and so forth. And then we do require written responses to be included in the report. And that's so that we have a balanced report. And you all, as citizens, deserve not only to have what we're recommending and the circumstances of the finding, but you deserve to hear what the county management is saying in response to that. Are they agreeing with it, or are they not agreeing with it? And if not, why not? So those are right there in the report, on every single report that we issue. And then we issue reports to the Board of County Commissioners. They're on the consent agenda, on the clerk's consent agenda, for every report that we issue, and they're posted to our website. And I have plenty of cards for each of you, and it's got our website on it. And we've got every report that's been issued since I've been there, which has been 3 years. And you might find some of them very interesting.
Hint, hint. I've got some of the older ones.
By the way, I love your slogan on your t-shirts, "We the people." Now, I'll tell you what I thought when I saw that. Hallelujah! Hallelujah! I'm a preacher also. I preached when I was a missionary, so forgive me. These are examples of some of the areas that we've audited since I've been here. Animal services, we had a lot of issues with animal services, as you can probably imagine. So many that we did 2 separate reports and 2 separate audits back to back with animal services. Park fees and maintenance report, we just issued this week, and it's on the consent agenda for next week's BCC meeting. And the same for Section 8 program, which you might find interesting, also will be on the agenda. These are both on our website now. They went on yesterday. We've done hauler billings, code enforcement. We've done infrastructure sales tax about a year ago, and I've heard people and citizens say, "I sure wish we could get a list of what the sales tax money has been used for, what projects." Well, guess what? We've got it in our report, and it's all audited information, and it's in one of the appendices. Every single project that the money was spent on, you can see it, and it's audited. It's coming from us. It's not coming from management. And then there's another appendix in the report where we looked at what the board told the voters, the citizens, prior to voting in 2001. There was a list of projects there. So we found that list, and we looked at every one to see if it was completed or not completed, and we tabulated that for you in another appendix. So I think you'll find it to be useful information. This is an example of some of the stuff we do, because normally when people think of auditors or inspector generals, they think of only financial matters. But there's a lot of things in government that are very important beyond just finances. And this is one. This is the EMS operation, the ambulance system, if you will. And what had happened was there were some problems, some errors in the response time reporting by the EMS management, and so the board, the EMS board, actually requested us to do an audit, which we did. But before we started the audit, I sat and listened to EMS management tell the EMS board that there were no national standards as far as response times. Of course, response times being from the time the call comes into 911 till the time the ambulance gets at your doorstep, saying there was no national standards. So I thought, well, this is interesting. So during the audit, we did research, and we in fact found 2 sets of national standards for response times. And if you can see this, I don't know if you can read it or not, this was, in the original audit, this was their actual response times. And the worst, of course, it's quicker if you're in a city, in a town. And it's not average, excuse me, it's 90% of the response times were within this time period. For the rural areas of Lake County, it was 20 minutes. 20 minutes to get an ambulance to your doorstep. So we started looking at response times, and we really, really focused on that to the EMS board and to everybody. Turn the slide. Here a while back, I got this letter from the EMS manager, director, that says we have now adopted national response times. So it took a while, but they did it. And before the audit, everybody thought there were no national standards for response times. So, and this is one of the good effects that we have, that we'll never know the benefits of the audit function. Maybe lives were saved by getting ambulances to people's homes quicker during an emergency. There were other issues. Sometimes ambulances were tied up at hospitals with patients, and they couldn't unload them for a long time. If I remember right, it was an hour or more. They would sit there tying up an ambulance. And we actually had some statistics in our report, I think we had at the hospital, that showed what the average wait time was. And so we focused on that, and they worked on that, and now we've done a follow-up since then, and it's much, much better. It's very reasonable now compared to just to give you some performance data, I know some of you like the performance metrics in county government, and so do I. Since I've been there, we've issued 46 audit reports. We've made 459 recommendations for improvement. Management actually concurred with 364 of these recommendations. And actually, I'm going to stop here for a minute, because some people wonder, well, how good is it if they concur or don't concur or whatever? I would submit to you, probably, if management concurs with 100% of your recommendations, as the IG or auditor, you're probably not doing your job. Because if you're out there pushing management, be accountable and efficient and effective, there's going to be some resistance somewhere along the way. And then the other way, if they don't concur with hardly anything, then I think you've really got a problem. Because I like to tell people, and I told management this, that when people are looking at our reports and trying to judge the quality of management, yes, look at our audit findings, but even more important in my mind is look at the response to the findings. If they're responding, yes, we concur, we'll fix it, then in my mind, they're acting in the public interest. If they fight it tooth and nail, I think you have to question if there's another motivation going on rather than what's in the public interest. And it's kind of humorous. One other county I was in, I won't say which one, I wasn't late. Every report we issued, the county manager would disagree. He would demonize us. He would fight it tooth and nail in the public and the press and the media. And then guess what? We'd do the follow-up a year later. Every recommendation would be implemented. For some reason, publicly, I guess he didn't want to give us credibility that our suggestions, or he probably perceived them as criticism, were right. So he would try to discredit us, but they would implement our stuff. So I guess that's okay. It worked out in the end. We've done potential cost savings or increased revenue of over $1.5 million. And here's the good number I like: potential annualized savings or increased revenues. This is every single year of $1.3 million. And total funds determined to be spent not in accordance with the rule, $700,000. I'll give you a quick little example. Just real quick, one little audit, didn't involve a lot of effort, doesn't take any more people to implement. there's a way, the county pays most of its bills by checks, most of the big bills. But there's methods using P cards, credit cards, or a similar system to P cards, where you can pay the bigger contracts with that P card. And you might think, well, what's so good about that? Well, what's so good about it is the county actually gets a rebate for everything it charges, uses its P card for. It gets a rebate of about 1.5%. So guess what? You use it for more bigger contracts, you get bigger rebates. And so we did an audit, and we actually looked at probabilities of vendors accepting the P cards and all that. And we wound up with an additional $350,000 a year just by changing the way you pay your bills.
Wow.
In some cases, not even all cases. Takes no additional staff. As a matter of fact, it's probably more efficient than issuing a paper check. So that's just an example of some of the out-of-the-box thinking can really be beneficial. And they concurred with that one, and they're working on that as we speak. Okay, this is our fraud, waste, and abuse hotline. And this is our new poster. It's not even been posted yet. You're the first ones to see it. But I love it.
Take a bite out of fraud, waste, and abuse.
And you know, this is going to be, hopefully, posted on every department bulletin board throughout the county, Board of County Commissioners and the clerk's office. Because, you know, whenever you operate a fraud and waste and abuse hotline, most frauds aren't detected by audits. Most frauds are detected by tips. And most of the tips that identify fraud are from county employees of the jurisdiction. So it's really important to get this out there so if they see it, they will pick up the phone and call the fraud hotline. And you can remain anonymous with us as well. And so what we're going to do is try to change these about every 6 months to something new, so people will see something different and keep their interest. Okay, now we're going to talk a little bit about another topic. And I want you to imagine just for a minute that all of a sudden, next week, you do not have these rights. You did not have the right to marry. Obviously, you didn't have the right to vote. You didn't have the right to travel. Maybe you don't even have the right to leave your home. Maybe you don't have the right to even go to a restaurant. Don't have the right to seek employment. Don't have the right to enter a contract. Don't have the right to determine where you live. As a matter of fact, you could be, if you needed some type of nursing home care or something, you could be taken to a facility and your family might not even know where you are. It's happened. Consent to medical treatment. Suppose someone else was consenting what treatment you would have. You could decide if you wanted surgery or not have surgery or whatever. And someone else, maybe a complete stranger, managing your checkbook, taking all of your money, taking control. In some cases, worse yet, maybe it's your family members. Or you have the right to make any decision about just virtually any aspect of your life. Maybe it's been taken away. Right to make gifts. You can decide to give people a gift. Ladies and gentlemen, this is guardianship in the United States. And this is guardianship in the state of Florida. And this is guardianship in Lake County. It's not some third world country. This is the United States of America. And so guardianship, what guardianship is a legal process in which a guardian is appointed to exercise the rights of an incapacitated person. And an incapacitated person is an adult who's been judicially determined to lack capacity. Now, there are two types of guardians. One is a family guardian. If there's someone in your family, maybe it's a son or daughter or a parent or a sister or brother or somebody else, the court can appoint them as your guardian. And if not, there's also professional guardians that can be appointed to be your guardian. In that case, the professional, whom you don't know, can take your checkbook and they can make all these decisions for you. And they will do that. You can file, have a person determined incapacitated, anybody. If you're walking on the street, and maybe you're staggering or sleepy or whatever, and some person sees you, and they think, oh, you're not competent, they can file a petition with the court for you to have a capacity hearing. And with a capacity hearing, it's typically by 3 people that will be convened. At least one is a doctor. Usually the second person is some type of professional or a doctor. And then the third person is somebody else. And you know that third person can even be a professional guardian. And if they say, yes, you're incapacitated, they determine if you're totally incapacitated or not. And if they say you're totally incapacitated, immediately a guardian is appointed to take over your affairs. Immediately. You can lose every one of those rights. It's a scary process. And it's a process that needs to be there. I mean, definitely guardianship is a very needed area and so forth, but it can be abused. And when it's abused, it's scary, very scary. And it's even more scarier, you know, if you think of some family situations where maybe there's, you know, we like to think our family members can all be trusted, and most of them probably can be for most of you. But what if you're in a situation where you have, maybe you're married to someone other than the mother of your children, and maybe one of your children's wanting all your money because you have a lot of money. They think you're spending it, too much of it, so they won't have much of an inheritance. This could be done. Could be done. So anybody can do this. If someone comes into your home and let's say you're not a good housekeeper, you're messy and you leave stuff strung around, that's an indicator that maybe you may have some capacity problems. They might file a petition on you. So I guess the moral of the story is if you're kind of incapacitated and are not a good housekeeper, don't invite people into your homes. So, you know, when this person takes over, they change your bank account, put it in their name as guardian. They'll change over the deed to your house, put it in the name of the guardianship. And then they can do whatever. And by the way, guardianship is not just for elderly people. Probably most people are elderly, but also there are many, many children in guardianship. Developmentally disabled, also people that are in a car accident that get huge settlements. The family members can take control of their money, and there's been all kinds of things go on with that. I had some stories to tell you about. I won't get into much of that tonight, but these are some of the areas of exploitation. The guardian will come in and take a beginning inventory of everything in your house, all your possessions, and then they put it on a sheet and list the value for the court. And we audit. I'm talking to you about this because the clerk is the auditor of these accountings and inventories and financial reports. They have to be filed by the guardian. And we now have the legal authority to do investigations of potential improprieties, and we're doing that. But imagine when the guardian can come in, take and just list all of your property. You know, once it's listed, they're accountable for it. But you know, a lot of people tend to stuff cash under their mattress or in books or wherever. I have to wonder how much of that stuff never makes it to the initial inventory. And I don't want to badmouth professional guardians because there's a lot of good professional guardians out there. And to be a good professional guardian, in my mind, you do it for your heart. You do it because you want to help people. Even though in Lake County you're getting paid $50 an hour to do it. But that's not, you know, if you're in it for the money, in my mind, you're in it for the wrong reasons. But there are guardians out there that do try to get as much money as possible. Statewide, I'm not talking Lake County specifically, but statewide. Sell home. They sell your home. It's very common when you're in an institution. They'll sell your home because of the expense and to get money maybe for your care. But guess what I've seen happen in other counties? homes would be sold by the guardian sometimes for half of their value. They would use in some cases the property appraiser's value, and then they would sell them for a lot less than that. And they would sell them through a land, the buyer would be a land trust. As you probably know, you don't know who the true buyer is in a land trust, but it's not disclosed. And then I would see a couple months later, the house resold for twice what the guardian sold it for. Many guardians don't use a realtor. They'll sell it themselves, and I'll tell you what that usually means. They have a list of investors that they go to, and they call them, and they take the house off their hands. Well, guess what? Investors have to make money. Trusts are sometimes used to circumvent guardianships. A common problem is, especially for children or adults, there'll be several members living in the household of the, we call them the ward, the incapacitated person. But the guardianship is paying all the money, paying all the utilities, all the groceries, all the cable TV bill, everything's paid by the guardian, and the family members living in the home are not paying anything. And you wouldn't believe the trouble I have convincing everybody, including the courts, that this is not right. It's the wards need the money potentially for their future care. You know, family members or others, or attorneys or guardians, shouldn't be siphoning off this stuff and leaving the ward penniless, possibly in the future. So it's very important that these funds be accounted for properly. And another thing I found out in Pinellas County, if a family member finds out a professional guardian is not doing a good job, maybe doing some things they shouldn't be doing, they can petition the court to have that guardian removed. And guess what? It's perfectly legal for the guardian to use the ward's money to pay legal expenses to fight being retained as guardians.
Oh my goodness.
That's something that needs to be changed, changing the law. There's games that I've seen played, I've heard were played not in Lake County, but in other counties, where people will befriend people that they know they have money, and then they'll try to get some ammunition as to why they should be declared incompetent. They will file a petition to get them declared incompetent, get to be guardian, then they have access to their money. Attorney billings can be a problem. Some judges, if you can believe this, in courts in the past, I've had judges say, I'm not going to question the reasonableness of attorney billings. What? I'll tell you one thing, we're going to question them, and we're going to write them up. You know, we can't force the court to do anything, but we can certainly write them down in black and white. We can document what's going on. That's our new guardianship poster that we're going to send to every nursing home in Lake County to try to generate calls on financial fraud, abuse, related boards.
Will they have to post them?
They don't have to, we're going to ask them to. But typically in the past, the nursing homes have been cooperating in that, in other places. There's some needed reforms. You know, there needs to be a state agency that, in my mind, that kind of is responsible for disciplining guardians. Sometimes the courts aren't real quick to do that. If something's going to happen that's wrong, they'll correct it, but then there's no discipline. So there needs to be consequences whenever a guardian does something wrong. I won't get into the petitions thing, but consider the courts and the clerks to consider the reasonableness of all expenses. And inappropriate charges should be grounds for removal of the guardian. Provide sanctions. Do you know that there's a requirement to file an annual accounting of all the ward's money? Do you know that some guardians will wait 3 years or more, and then they'll file all 3 years' annual accountings together? Guess what happens in many cases when they do that? Nothing. Well, here we go. Okay, I'm about done here. This is one of my favorite things that I've come to realize over the years.
Yeah. Oh, yes.
So that's what we do in the Inspector General's office. We apply the heat. And our motto, in God we trust, everyone else we audit. This is contact information. I guess you all could, it's on my business card if you'd like one. So with that, I wanted to open it up for questions. Vince?
So this being a political organization, is it possible then for us, if we observe a certain elected official to be acting in a wild and obnoxious manner, that we could force them into guardianship?
That's between you and the judge.
Especially if they pass tax increases?
You thinking about Grayson's?
Yes, ma'am.
No, I think he's thinking a little bit more domestically.
Yeah.
For this guardianship issue, is there an appeal process? I mean, people are sometimes have incapacity issues for a short period of time, and then it reverses and they're fine.
Yes.
So there is some kind of annual, report on it, and you can be appealed and reversed?
Well, there's an annual guardianship plan whereby the guardian is supposed to report to the court the condition of the ward and whether they're gaining any capacity or whatever. But there is you can file a petition to restore capacity. Somebody can file that, and then it would be reviewed formally. So there is a way out.
Good.
Just
I imagine you must run into situations where you'll have a conflict between a budget and the law and what's right, or what's needed, what's fair. How do you navigate through those issues?
are you talking with guardianships or with?
No, with auditing. When you're auditing, you have a set of laws that
Right.
govern an entity.
Right,
And then you have, most departments have a budget
right,
that they
Right.
measure against.
right, right.
And then, of course, you have what the price should be versus what they're paying and so forth. What is your guiding
Okay.
decision
Yeah.
here in terms of?
If there's a violation of the law, non-compliance with the law, we write it up. We don't say, well, they didn't have a lot of people, so, they didn't respond to this 911 call as soon as they should have. If there's a law violation, we write it up. And basically, we recommend that they take whatever action is necessary to be able to comply with the law. Or if they don't comply with the budget, if they overspend the budget without authority, we would write it up. And on our long-range audit plan, we plan to look at the budget process, to look at how they're developing the budget and look at how they're amending the budget as they go throughout the year. But if there's any type of non-compliance, any type of inefficiency, we will write it up. And then it's up to management to figure out what specifically to do about it.
I've had a few problems, a few times there, and I found out that our only defense against them, that's the whole system, is exercise our rights. They took an oath to uphold and charge them with that, and that's very serious. And most of the time I walk in a court or a hearing, I would ask them, can I see the contract? And they say, what do you mean the contract? I said, well, you're a contract with government, like license and such taxes, you do. And I said, I'm a free to do right. And you took an oath to uphold that common law. And you have no jurisdiction. And I then, under my power of my rights, I dismiss this. Listen, believe me, it works. You can beat around the bush all you want, try every way. And they invented those programs. But that Constitution is our law, and if we exercise it, they run from it, because they can't come back. And another thing, when you stand, they want your money. And if they're not going to get your money, look, they move into another country. And that's where they come out of anyway. And all we ever did, only thing we ever got good is people stand on our God-given rights, secured by the Constitution of the United States. And the day we get believed, them little books, the Bill of Rights, common law, that's the answer. A muscle is not exercised, loses its strength. You can run around the circle and go, what do you want to do to help you, fight you? All you're doing is spinning your wheels. I spoke here a couple of times like that. I'd like to speak some more, because I can back up what I'm saying. And you can check me out.
So there's not a question in there, is there?
Yeah, I guess
Well,
that was a question.
I'll make a statement about it.
It's a good one.
It's very important for citizens to be involved in government. Government is here to serve the citizens, here to serve you folks. And believe it or not, when citizens apply enough pressure, their elected officials will listen. And that's one reason that we try to make all of our audit reports public, because if management doesn't listen to us, I'm hoping that you all do. And I'm hoping that you'll apply some pressure on officials to implement the recommendations for better government.
It works. It works.
Yes, sir.
When you make the audit, if you find criminal activity, do you go directly to a prosecutor with that, or do you just turn in the report to the people who've done something wrong?
No. We do fraud, waste, and abuse investigation. If we're coming across some type of criminal activity, we'll look at it to the point that we prove or substantiates that it's criminal activity. And if it's a county employee somewhere along there, we will go typically to the sheriff in Lake County, and we'll say, okay, this is what we got, and we'll basically give them the choice. Do you want us to keep looking at it, or do you want to take it over? My experience in other jurisdictions is you all do whatever you can do, and then when you're done, give it to us. So what my philosophy is that we go all the way, do the full investigation, and I will sit down with the subject, the wrongdoer, and I will try to elicit an admission to that. And more often than not, majority of the time, they will admit to what's done. But we take it all the way, then we get a statement, then we present the whole package to law enforcement. Now, if we're in a situation involving an elected official, my practice in other jurisdictions has not been to go to local law enforcement because they're potentially too politically connected. So I would take the information to the FBI, get it to the federal level. Yes, sir.
A couple brief questions. One, you made reference to the limitation on your authority to investigate or audit constitutional offices, and made reference to an attorney general's opinion. Do you know the site to that particular?
Yes, I do.
It's on the slide.
It's on the slide. Are you going to have access to this?
Sure.
If you go back towards the
Kelly's interpretation.
It's on the slide. It's
Kelly's
got the
interpretation.
opinion number.
Not all court clerks.
In the beginning, right?
Yes.
Right, well, it's an AG opinion, it may be limited to the jurisdiction asked for it.
Yeah, 8638. It sounds.
8638?
8638. You just go to the Attorney General's website.
There you go.
Opinion search and click.
There it is, Mark.
8638.
86-38.
How open is your office to members of the public that reviewed one of your audits and had needed to have clarifying questions addressed?
We're open to that. Absolutely.
All right.
We're glad to talk with.
Is there a particular person that'd be your point person other than yourself?
It's me.
Okay.
Come to me and I'll be glad to talk with you. And we have 4 auditors that do county audits, and they'll be with me, and we'll sit and try to answer all your questions.
All right, my name is Walter Price. My name is Mark Fisher.
Okay, the question I have, because we are the Tea Party, the people that have guardianships and are declared incompetent, are they removed from the voters' rolls?
You would have to ask the supervisor of elections about that. I know that the right to vote would be taken away from them. I don't know how that's communicated to the supervisor of
I'm
elections.
assuming that their caretakers are removed.
No, they cannot. Yeah, the guardian, that's one right the guardian can take.
Bob, one of the things I heard last night from Larry Metz, because Larry Metz did a legislative update to the last session, and he mentioned that he worked on a bill that defined fraud, waste, and abuse by statutes at the state level. Is that true that the state does not have a definition of fraud, waste, and abuse? Do you know that to be true?
No, I don't know that to be true. The state does have, and every state agency has an inspector general's office. And those inspector generals investigate fraud, waste, and abuse.
And you have a legal term, a legal definition of what those three?
I'm not sure if it's in the statutes. There are common definitions, like in the Association of Inspector Generals, those terms are defined. Usually our profession uses those definitions.
Okay.
Yes, ma'am.
Yeah, I'm wondering, do you also audit the North Lake County Hospital District at all? Or that's out of your?
No, ma'am.
No.
You can throw that in with the constitutionals probably. It's a separate entity. even though it's in Lake County, so we have no audit.
Wouldn't that be a good idea?
Oh, yes, it would.
Actually, they have a pretty thorough audit now because of the new regulations.
Did you have a question?
Yes, I'm a trustee of an irrevocable trust. Anything you said tonight apply to me?
Not unless there's a guardianship involved.
No.
No.
No. Nothing applies to you. The trusts, and that's how they can be abused. The trusts typically, with some exceptions, a lot of times they're outside of court purview. So what I tell people that want to establish a trust, and they ask me, who should be my trustee? Someone you trust. Because that person's gonna be in total control, just like the guardians are, of the finances that are in the trust. So that's a very important point. Yes, sir.
Would your inability to audit the supervisor of elections inhibit you from investigating voter fraud?
Probably so, yes. We would not have access to any type of voting record or the documents within the supervisor of elections office. So yes, I think it would.
Who does do that audit then?
I can't speak for the process on the voting because we don't audit our office, and so one of the things as Inspector General, I try not to speak about it, something I haven't audited. So I think you'd have to direct that to the supervisor of elections. Anything else? Okay, I think I'm done.